Renyung, so good to see you again. Yes. I think last time I saw you was briefly at an event. How's it been for you in the last couple of years? And especially now that you're a mother. Congrats!
Thank you. Motherhood is really, I think it's a cliche. All the cliches are really true.
They are?
Yeah.
Oh, they are. Okay.
All the good stuff and all the bad stuff as well. The last 2 years has really been, I think, quite transformational. I feel that I've grown and changed a lot. Bandwidth has really exploded and grown so much. And my role, and just in terms of the different spheres in my life and what I go in and out of has changed. But now I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
You're meeting me at a good time.
Thank God.
So I feel like I am now in flow, which is a really nice feeling.
But it must have taken a lot of struggle to get to that flow, right? To get to that sort of sweet spot where you kind of find a balance. Would you say that?
Yes, I mean, I think the good example that I have a friend who does handstand classes, and the good example is like learning how to do a headstand and yoga, where you kind of are training different parts of your body, and one day, and you keep trying and you keep trying, and one day you find it and you find that balance.
Yeah.
And you may not stay there forever, and you may fall down again.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
As long as there's progress.
And exactly. And you know that you know what that feeling is like. Yeah.
I mean, with the analogy, I think like for me, right, whenever I try a handstand or headstand, it's a lot about trusting and letting go.
Yes.
And a lot of the times, it's all in my mind. I realize like we limit ourselves because I keep telling myself that okay, I can't do it, or like my hands cannot support my body, or my legs are going to fumble. And most of the time, like we are overwhelmed just by our mindset, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What are some of the things that have really changed for you when it comes to motherhood? You said like your bandwidth has expanded. Right? A lot of the times I hear from moms that when they become mothers and they also run their business, having their own work, they learn to be extremely productive with their time. Yeah. What are some of the things that perhaps has really changed for you?
Actually, I think one of the biggest things is being more people-oriented. I used to be more task-oriented or plan-oriented or problem-oriented or just more about the right answer and finding solutions or getting the most out of that meeting or that 1 hour situation. But I find that the empathy side of me has really grown. And being people-oriented, meaning I think I used to spend a lot more time on getting work done as opposed to establishing relationships with people and helping them get their work done.
Right.
So in terms of actually leadership, my style has also changed quite a lot. And becoming a mother has enabled me to develop those skills.
Wow.
So my perspective has also changed, and my time frame has also changed.
Wow. And I think, I mean, it's true, right? And like you say, being people-oriented, because at the end of the day, as an individual, we can only do so much, right? And of course, we need our teams and our people to help and to grow together with us for the mission of the companies that we have.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about your leadership style, right? And how would you describe yourself as a leader or as a manager?
Okay, before we go into that, I was stalking you online.
I was stalking you online too.
One of the things that I was super interested in is you saying that you didn't feel like a natural leader. Whereas from the outside, everyone's like, probably everyone's thinking like, wow, you lead this like meteoric company that has grown so quickly and you've done it for so long that it should come naturally to you. So tell me first, like, why do you feel that way?
It really doesn't, really. And I think that like the people, I mean, if you know me very well, you would know that it doesn't really come naturally, right? And I think growing up to me, especially when I first started out in this journey, you read a lot about over-glamorized leaders like Steve Jobs and all that. And I would think that, oh my God, I'm nothing like him or them at all. I'm not like the hard skills, super visionary, super, like everything hard skills and everything. I didn't have any of that, I felt. And I struggled a lot because also I have never worked under anyone, so I don't know what's a good boss, what's a bad leader, what's a good leader, and had to fumble and learn along the way to discover. And I'm still learning and making mistakes and learning from it. And I think at the end of the day, I think for me also, it's really about just discovering who I really am, what my strengths are, and leading with my strengths, right? And it's not necessarily what the book says a leader is meant to be, right? I find that I'm a more people-oriented leader, right? And that's what I try to work on and becoming more excellent in those areas, and then also having the humility and understanding to recognize the kinds of people that I need to bring on board to complement my strengths and who are smarter than me and better than me in other disciplines and areas to do this with me. So I realized that at the end of the day, there is no checklist per se as to the 5 ingredients that you need to be a great leader. I don't know. I would love to hear from you as well. I think for me, it's really also, it's been such a long journey in discovering and confronting the truths of who I am, who I'm not, accepting it, embracing it, and then just being secure in it and just being who I am. So there are a lot of things that I can tell you I am not great at and that I lack, and that my team would tell you too. But at the end of the day, I guess it's also then knowing where can you, what can you really contribute to make a dent in the universe?
I think that I resonate a lot with that journey. And one of the things that changed for me was I realized that not feeling like a natural leader means that I had an idea of what leadership looks like.
Right.
And when I stopped thinking about myself and like, am I a leader? Am I this? Am I? Then I started thinking about the people around me. And I realized that leadership is really, in my experience, has been, are you able to bring out the best in the people around you? And are you able to inspire and motivate them towards a common goal? And that's really it. And what it takes to do that is different in every circumstance, which is why you have different types of leaders and different types of companies.
It's true. And the thing is, because everyone is different, everyone is motivated differently. Even your team, right? They're all they're all motivated by very different things, right? So you have to speak their language in that sense, right? And for us as well, I think in Love Bonito, the key is really for us, Love Bonito at the end of the day is also a platform to give our people to discover their talents, discover their gifts, and help them really fulfill their potential at the end of the day. And people and when it comes to people, I'd love to learn from you. What are some things that you look for, especially now, at the stage that you're in? What are some things that you look for in the people that you hire?
I'm so glad you asked that question because it's been something I've been thinking about so much. We are a very people business. I mean, every business is a people business, but hospitality specifically is extremely and very much a people business.
At the front line, literally, right?
Well, you have to really love people and you have to love solving problems together, I think. So someone that just joined us said, I now kind of understand the people that you're looking for. You're looking for unicorns. And I was like, what do you mean? And actually, the people that I look for are problem solvers and creative, and not creative in the usual sense of the word, but creative in terms of like thinking. I have a varied. Usually, they have quite a varied experience. Small company, big company, their own company, so they're usually entrepreneurial, creative, able to solve problems from different angles, so able to look at something from different angles, and I think that perspective is really important. So bringing in people who are not always from traditional hospitality has been quite important.
I've realized also the perspective from a different industry totally helps. Because sometimes when people come from the same industry or from the same sort of role, they're just trained to think in a certain way, and hence they don't really question the way we do certain things.
But at the same time, you need change makers who have one foot in the future, one foot in the past, in the sense that like one foot in the future, meaning they can see the potential of what's to come, what they want it to be like, what they strive for, and they have their own personal vision as well of what they think the organization should look like and how things should be done. But one foot in the past in the sense that they have the ability to carry other people along with them, meaning that they're not necessarily frustrated all the time at how things are and at that, but actually look at the situation and say like, hey, can they bring along other people with them towards that future? And so being that kind of person does require being able to toggle between two perspectives.
Right. Do you think that this trait or this characteristic is something that can be trained and nurtured?
In general, I'm a growth mindset kind of person. So I think everything to a certain extent can be trained and nurtured. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And is there one particular then characteristic, besides of course, and importantly what you said, being creative and also being problem solvers. Is there one characteristic in people that you really look out for when you interview them and when you talk to them?
I think self-motivation is really important. I think people who are naturally competitive with themselves, meaning that they have a constant self-improvement kind of streak. They always want to push more. They always want to become continuously a better version of themselves.
They're just hungry.
They're hungry.
Driven,
But they're hungry and driven because they want to, not only for themselves, but because they want to create an impact and benefit to the people around them. There are just some people who really want to just make a situation better.
Yeah.
Where they see something and they're like, oh, this is not working well. What can I do to make that better? Why is this not working well? That kind of mentality, and you get satisfaction from just making something better.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you find it rare to find these kind of people? Are they really unicorns?
I think actually what that person meant by unicorns was not so much that they are rare, but more that they are made up of different angles and different things.
Yeah.
Not coming from one particular point of view, one particular typical experience.
Got it.
So the people that we've hired and are bringing on board, usually they're, went into one industry, small company, started their own, so they went into something else, was an MNC, did a change kind of initiative there, came out, did something else. So it looks like a very varied CV, but actually what is consistent is that they're able to be lateral jumpers.
Right.
And the way that they solve problems and their way of thinking and working with people is consistent.
Right. So there's diversity in the experiences.
Yes. But the way that they operate is the same.
It's really interesting. What is one misconception that you think most people have about your industry?
Oh my gosh. When people say to me, oh, you have such a, if you go to these luxury hotels all the time, you must be, all the spas and the hotels that you do, you must be...
And all the villas.
You must be relaxed. You must be so relaxed.
Constantly zen.
Yes. So I think the misconception is that once you build everything, once you set it in place, then it just happens. And I think what people don't realize is that it's like a theatre every day.
Oh, for sure.
In a way,
I understand.
You set the stage, the guests come in, and you are creating an experience, and you're constantly performing and setting a theatre every single day. But at the same time, you're interacting with all your different guests. So it's part theatre, part authentic experience. And I think maintaining that, where someone feels like, oh, you actually created this incredible experience for me, but at the same time it looks completely seamless, that it takes constant effort.
And the interesting thing is that it's different every day, right? Because different people are different guests, different experiences, different demands, different expectations, right? Have you been hands-on before to to be there to serve the guests and experience? Oh, how was it?
I love it actually. I actually love being on the front line. I love being with the customer. And I love being in operations. I started with pre-opening in the company, so really,
that's really
really understanding how everything comes together. And I think that's really important. And I think you also spoke a lot about, I was reading in one of your interviews that you can read all the analytics and all the data that you want, which is really important. But there's nothing like being on the front line and talking to a customer and saying why do you like this? Why do you not like this? And getting a feel of it.
Yeah, that's so valuable. So tell me, how is it like for you, if you shift gears a little bit, how is it like for you growing up?
Oh.
Yeah, because, you grew up with, and I was reading also about your parents. They seem like they're really great parents, and great examples. How is it like growing up in the environment? Because I also believe that we are shaped and conditioned to a certain extent by the environment that we are brought up in.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many ways I could take that conversation. I think one of the more powerful things I could talk about, because I was just at an event yesterday talking about gender equality. So I'd say in today's climate, that probably is the most pertinent thing that I feel. That I was raised gender blind in a way, which is a fantastic thing. I never felt compromised by my gender. And in my parents' relationship, I think that was really powerful. How equal they are in terms of taking turns around different situations, responsibilities, time with us. And I think that was a great learning for me, and also from my mom, to know that, you know, there are no boundaries except the ones that you place for yourself. I think that's a powerful lesson for your daughter. And, you know, I mean, we all have our own issues with parents and childhood and so on, right? But if I look at my own issues against what my mom grew up with, and I look at the generational difference between that, I'm like, wow, I'm very grateful.
And she pushed through all of that, right? And
Yeah. I think each generation of parents try and improve upon the previous generations and what you learn from there.
Yeah. And if you were to also look back, was there a period in your life that you felt was most instrumental also, or most defining, and in also shaping who you are today and what you are today?
I'm quite a reflective person, so before my kid, I used to take every birthday alone.
Really?
And go and climb some
mountain.
mountain.
And you said you were an ENFP, Renyung.
Yes.
Really?
And now I'm an INFP. So now I've become introverted.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So in essence, I feel that every year, every 2 years, it feels like a cycle for me. I actually feel like I change quite a bit every 2 years.
Wow.
And reflection is really important.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say that there was one particular time that was more defining than others. But if I had to pinpoint, I'd say maybe the years before going to university. I think that period of time, which I kind of categorize as my school of life time, where I said to myself, okay, the men go to national service. I want to go into the school of life because, you know, in Singapore we go from primary school to secondary school to tertiary and then right into university. And if you go through education that way, it doesn't necessarily expose you to a lot of what the realities of life are. So for 2 years I just took different jobs.
Well, even back then you already thought about that.
Yes. Because I think the exposure to difference and understanding the diversity of life and was something that my parents instilled in me from very young. We traveled a lot, we met a lot of different people. So taking that time to go into different roles and different jobs, I think really was fundamental for me.
Yeah. No, I read that, you know, it opened up your eyes, especially even traveling around the region.
Yes.
And then even realizing that, oh my God, how fortunate we actually really are. And a lot of the things that we might have taken for granted. Things like that.
Yeah. I think everything is so seamless in Singapore that if you do have the privilege of traveling outside of Singapore, you'll see how much Singapore is quite a bubble in that sense, in a very good way.
Yeah. And I really like what you said earlier, right, about you being a person who reflects constantly and reflects a lot. Because I've always believed that we don't learn by experiences, we learn by reflected experiences.
Yes.
Right? And the same thing can happen to two persons, but why is it that someone walks away with a different lesson and someone else doesn't?
Yes.
So
what that reminds me of is that it's the story we tell ourselves. It's entirely the story we tell ourselves. And this brings me into like two areas. One is this idea of how men explain something to themselves and women explain something to themselves. And I realized that and studies have shown that when something goes right, a lot of the times men, and this is obviously a generalization, but let's not say men and women, let's say one category of people and another category. So one category of people will say, okay, this thing went well, amazing, it was because of me, I did this, and this is how I brought this to fruition. And that same person, if something goes badly, they'll say, oh, the situation was as such, and external factors,
the conditions around wasn't favorable.
Yes. And then another category of person will say, oh, this thing went really well, I was so lucky, it was the external factors, and you know, this is my team as well that made it happen. And if something went badly, they would say, oh, I did this. So the way that we attribute and the story that we tell ourselves is so important. And that's one thing. The second thing I realize is that the way that we speak to our children becomes their inner voice. And I think that's really important.
That's really important, and that's a very scary thought.
It is.
You actually think
it is. It is.
You have so much influence, or the words have so much power.
Yeah. And you realize that your inner voice is actually it's kind of, as we grow older, we realize that it's I sound like my parents.
Yes. And whether we like it or not, it is. Yeah.
And language is powerful, and I feel that conversation is becoming more and more important, because we're so used to texting, we're so used to like interfacing with others through a screen and through text, that I feel like real conversation, of active listening, of being able to articulate, all of that are skills that we need to ensure that our children still have growing up.
And the right mindset, the right voices also, right? I think that's very key.
Yeah.
So for yourself, I think, to take it back a little bit to what you mentioned earlier, I think, like you mentioned earlier, it's really all about the voices in our heads, right? And you and I know that in this journey, at the end of the day, it's down to how strong you are mentally.
Yes.
And which voice you choose to listen to, and which voice you choose to shut out.
Yes.
How has that been for you?
Oh, wow. Hugely a big thing that I'm thinking about, actually. And I mean, it's funny when this sounds almost like a stage question, even though I know it's not, because we're in the spa, and I've been thinking so much about what is well-being, and so much of it is mental health, and I think that so little has been spoken about it. We recently hosted a mindfulness training for 5 days in Bonito.
Wow.
Yeah, and
in Singapore.
In Phuket.
In Phuket, okay.
Yeah, and it was a collaboration that we did. We didn't really know what was going to come out of it. It was just a personal passion of mine, because I feel that it's an area that I think we should bring into the company, into the organization, in terms of resilience. And the feedback that they gave was that they felt so supported, and they felt that there was so much synergy between what they were learning and they were feeling, and the environment that they were in. And I realized that a lot of great service is actually about mindfulness in a certain way. So, I mean, your question was, going back to your question.
No. Actually, please go on. I'm actually very intrigued by that.
Yeah.
So a lot of great service
is about being mindful.
Okay.
Because a lot of mindfulness is actually about empathy. It's a sense of like recognizing the common humanity in you and in me. If I can be present with myself, I can really be present to you. What are your needs?
Got it.
How are you feeling?
Even in this world where everything is moving at the speed of light, and it's so chaotic, but it's just pulsing.
If I cannot be present with you, how can I really understand what you want and really deliver it to you in a way that comes from an authentic place of wanting to care for you, or solve your problem, or make you happy, you know? So for me, I realized that actually in the last year, so much has happened that my practice of mindfulness has been really, really, really important. So taking time out every day, even just 3 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour, whatever I can achieve, has been very precious for me. And it started in the beginning as a kind of creating of space, where I just needed that time to just...
It started from the creation of physical space alone to then, of course, your mental, emotional space alone.
Yes. But it's now transitioned to being able to be 100% present. Meaning, what the first step I think was like the shutting out of noise and being able to just be with myself. You know, the whole sitting with yourself kind of thing. Whereas now it's like, how do I bring that sense of mindfulness into every interaction that I have, even now with you? Like everything in me is about just being here with you right now.
Because the reverse can be detrimental, right? I mean, like for me in my journey, and I completely am learning so much about what you're saying about mindfulness, because to me, there are times in my journey when I realized that the mistakes that I've made that have cost me could have been avoided if I had been more intentional and mindful and present in the situations.
Yeah.
So please share me a little bit more about, like, I wanted to really ask you also, like, who you are today is also because of a build-up of certain habits that you've had along the way.
Yes.
And we all know that excellence is really, like doing things repeatedly and constantly and consistently. So what are some of the habits that you have that have really brought you to where you are today, or you found have really helped you to grow as a person?
Actually, I realized that I don't know if I'm a habit person or a disciplined person, it's like you read all these things about, oh, wake up at 6 a.m., do a certain thing the same day,
I know.
and then be like this.
I know.
And actually, I feel that what's important to me is principles. But habits and like time organization does not come naturally to me.
Oh, yes, me too.
And
Hallelujah. I always thought I'm the only one. Yeah.
No, like, and the thing is, I'm not sure that that's really the right or the only way of being. I think what's important is that your self-discipline of like, can you flow with like what you're feeling?
Yeah.
And I feel the awareness around what you need and then responding to that is more important than like, every day, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And that has, at least for me, been more freeing. And I'm able to, for myself, at least perform and feel at my most productive and optimum state when I have this like sense of flow and awareness around like, what do I need right now? I'm going to go to this right now. As opposed to like, okay, every day I'm going to do this, and this. Yeah. So I think the discipline part, so I always get asked like, how do you organize your day? How do you organize your time? You do so many things. Like, how do you make sure that you're at a peak state each time?
Yeah.
And I used to think that it was about organizing and bunching certain things together.
Okay.
And to a certain extent, the logistics thing is real.
Okay.
Where there is like a certain optimization around your time management, and everyone I think has their own hacks.
Yes.
But what has been more important for me is cultivating the mental and emotional capability to like go in and out of something with absolute flow and clarity.
Wow.
Meaning you can go into one kind of situation and be completely like, you know what that situation it requires.
Yeah.
You can be flexible and present and bring everything along and everyone along with you at that time. And then after that, you can go into another situation seamlessly and deliver the same.
Wow.
And that reducing that friction between from one kind of activity to another is really about cultivating the mental capability to kind of toggle between that, which is a practice.
It is.
And
which is also my point. In a sense, it's a habit in that sense where you train your mind and you train your... And it sounds to me so tiring just listening to you say that. It sounds so tiring.
Yes, and that's what...
Is it even possible?
Yes, of course it's possible. I think I definitely had decision fatigue at a particular time, going in and out of different things. But it's a resource. Attention is a resource that we have. How much attention can you pay to something? How much can you respond? That is something that you can build up. It's like a muscle.
No, for sure. And I really appreciate all your sharing about mindfulness, right? And I think, especially today, the practice of mindfulness, this term has been thrown around so much and perhaps, talked about so much, but what does it really mean? At least to you.
It's really true that, there's a reason why I think everyone is using this term or it has really gained traction. And we talked just now about how mental health issues are really on the rise. And for me, mindfulness has been about awareness. Really about creating more awareness and creating more, I talked a little bit just now about space. So creating the ability to have more space between something happening and us responding to it. So I think a lot of the times in the day, we are reacting. And we kind of live in a world with lots of stimuli, technology, your phone, people. You are, it is very easy to react in this pace and with the amount of stimuli that we have and the amount of decisions that you have to make. Exactly. So mindfulness is about just creating the environment for you to be able to respond instead of react. So something happens, there's a gap between the way that you respond, right? And most of the time we are reacting. And when we react, it's coming out of habits, it's coming out of preconceived notions, coming out of past experience,
or even
also.
emotional.
Whatever, you react, right?
Yes.
So mindfulness is like, okay, what practice do you need to do for yourself in order to have event, space, and then instead of react, okay, I can respond and I can choose to respond. So the goal is to really enable us to choose how we respond to certain things in a way that's consistent with our values. And so it's really about awareness. So at the very base of it, it starts with an awareness of, how am I feeling? My bodily awareness. How is my breath like? What does tension feel like? So I think for a lot of people, and for me, it started with that connection of my own awareness and consciousness of what is happening around me and my own body, my own breath, what is happening, what are thoughts in my mind. So you kind of have like two selves. The self that is in this situation, and then the awareness of what is happening in this situation.
Right.
And then the second part I wanted to talk about was that I do feel that there is a danger that the mindfulness movement may become too self-absorbed, because I'm a really strong believer in the roots of mindfulness, which is about a common humanity. You know, when we enhance our awareness, when we really know like who we are, where we are, it is about creating a sense of interconnectedness between not just us as people, but us and the place where we live. So I think that the positive benefits or ripple effects of that should lead to eventually better choices and actions that we can all take that has an effect on other people. So one of the areas that I actually want to explore more is mindfulness and sustainability, and those two things coming together. How do we create positive change from an individual point of view? Because I think the whole sustainability movement is very remote, right? There's X thousand kilos of carbon dioxide going into the air. It's not things that we individually necessarily feel or can go towards.
Yeah. And you also, you talked earlier also about for yourself, right? Sometimes it's just carving out 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour in a day to be mindful. What do you do in that 5, 10, half an hour?
For me, I do a lot of breath concentration. So it depends on the situation. So let's say in between the day, I would be thinking about, okay, where's my breath right now? Like, how does it feel? What does it feel like in my chest? Do I feel tense? And just taking, let's say, 2 minutes out on just focusing on like, okay, breathing in and breathing out. So that's more of a calming and focusing kind of practice. Other times, let's say I need to make a decision. It's just taking 3 minutes out, and it seems like a difficult decision. Like you know that you want to make it, but something is holding you back, or and just taking 3 minutes out to just like sit and think and kind of notice what are the thoughts that are preventing you from making that decision. So it can be different ways. And in another scenario, let's say something happens and I notice an emotion.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I feel annoyed or impatient.
Yeah.
Then I take a moment out, another 3 minutes or so, and say like, okay, why am I annoyed? And then first I'll think, okay, that annoyance feels like this, or that impatience is like this. And the way I'm interpreting it is actually causing me to feel that way. So it sounds like a cognitive process, but it's not all thinking. It's just overall awareness about how everything in your own ecosystem works.
So you're very in tune.
Correct.
With yourself.
So a lot of people also say like, oh, how long do you sit mindfulness? Is it like 30 minutes of not thinking about anything? It's really hard. And I'm like, when I started it was not about not thinking. The goal of mindfulness is not emptying or zen mind or whatever. It's really not. It's about just not judging, being aware, and starting with yourself, and then extending that to others.
Wow. And I think that honestly, being more mindful will make us better human beings, people, leaders, wives. You mentioned earlier also when I asked you what's perhaps one thing that you really look out for in people that you hire, and you mentioned people who are self-motivated. What are you motivated by? Are you motivated by different things in different stages of your life? Have you realized that it changed in different stages of your life? Or did it become more pronounced?
Wow. Definitely it changed at different stages. I think I went through a big proving stage of self-identity and being motivated by pushing myself to achieve and so on, and kind of more around that. So we talked about sports, right? And me being quite competitive.
So driven by the achievements, right?
So I think in the beginning it was competitive, being my best self in a way. Then I think in those 2 years traveling and in the region and volunteering in different aspects, a lot of motivation came from, wanting to recognizing that I'm in a position of great privilege and wanting to extend that opportunity to as many people as possible, and feeling like from a sense of justice. Now, those motivations are still there, and I think I have different motivations for different areas that I put my energy into. But something that has changed with the whole motherhood thing, I thought really deeply, and this is what I actually wanted to share with you about motherhood, is that it's really important to have a reason and your own personal idea for why you want to be a mother. Like and everyone will have kind of a different answer for that. And for me, I realized that it will expose me to a form of love that I will practice and learn how to practice as a skill. Because love is a skill and a practice, and it's not an emotion. Right? How
it
to
doesn't
love
come
someone
naturally also to everyone.
How do we love someone the best way possible? How do we love ourselves the best way possible? And so that was my reason for becoming a mother.
Wow.
And so my motivation now is how do I, and with Ray, how do I learn to do that and bring out the best in him? And that is a practice of love. And how do I make sure that I do my most to make sure that he grows up in a world that that I feel okay leaving him in as well.
Yeah, wow. And it's interesting, right? I think, and then also the capacity to love, and then to love differently, especially if we have different kids in future and things like that. I think that's really amazing.
Because I honestly, there's something right now called climate depression, where people really are feeling, I think, actually depressed about the state of how many issues there are in the world. And before, when I was pregnant and just before I gave birth, I thought, my one wish for Ray was that I hope that he sees the world as a beautiful place and continues to see that. And I think that's something that I hope he grows old and still feels and believes that.
And that's something that you can control, because especially his growing up years are going to be so instrumental to
cannot control anything.
He becomes.
Cannot control.
Even the environment.
Like, I feel like you can.
Like you say, even, right, like what you feed his...
Yes, true.
The voices.
True.
And
yes, there's definitely influence there and stuff that you can put your best into.
To a certain extent, control, yes. And I completely agree that there's a whole lot of other things that we cannot control, but it's then building up their values and helping them recognize.
The best piece of advice I also received for parenthood is, I went out for lunch the other day with a mentor who's like 85 years old right now. And he said, I think he has like 5 kids. And he said, what is the one lesson that you should tell your child? And you should make sure that he knows. And I thought a long time, thought about the right answer. And I said, treat others as you would want to be treated. And he said, no, that's not right. Motherhood and apple pie, wrong answer. He said, the most important lesson is that there is nothing your child can do to alienate him from you. And I was like, wow, that's true. That is 100% true. So I need to
the power of a parent's love.
Yeah. Like in terms, not just love, but like that you will always be there for them, that you will not be alienated from them. That kind of unconditionality, to put that into practice. It's a big thing.
Yeah, and that's something that I hear a lot from parents. My friends who are also parents, like they never knew that actually, like you said, love can be unconditional, right? Because we're so used to stick a certain checkbox for us to love you. And
at the same time, like there's also a lot of fear that I had before becoming a mother as well. And another friend said to me, you know what? No matter what you do everything right or everything wrong, your kids will still grow up blaming you for all the problems that they have. I was like, oh, okay, probably.
Makes sense. So, that's true.
There's not too much pressure also, because I think there's also so much pressure to on a woman to be working, do well in your career, be a great mom, look great, cook.
I know, right? All the expectations and demands are And how do you think that has affected your view on leadership and in leading people, especially in the companies?
In terms of
motherhood, right? Being a mother and understanding, and also because you talked about also perhaps unlocking a deep sense of empathy.
I think there's two areas I want to respond to. I think one is definitely the way we work. The nature of the office, the 9 to 6 work, flexible schedules. There's a lot of logistics around and policies that are not necessarily catered towards family life. I think here in Singapore that's changing. And when I say family life, I don't just mean mothers. I mean, I think the whole way that the workplace is structured and built, and the whole diversity and inclusion movement, those two things are coming together. So there's a lot of stuff to be done there in terms of putting in place practices that allow people to be their whole selves at work, right?
Yes.
The second part of it is, I think Google did like a 12-year study on what the best kinds of teams are.
Okay.
And they had Google is a huge company, and they devote, I think it's called Socrates, this project. And they found that the best performing teams are not characterized by a certain kind of people or so on, but the ones where each team member had equal share of voice. Doesn't mean that it was decision by majority, but just that every single person
of voicing up.
Yes, every single person was engaged, had the ability and the safety to say when they agreed or disagreed, and also had ideas. So no matter what the discussion, every single person had equal share of voice. And I think being a mother, it kind of relates in a way, because the way that we're bringing up our child is definitely such that we want him to have equal share of voice in the family. It doesn't always get his way, but that he is heard.
He's heard, and he matters.
From a young age, yes, that he is heard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's really powerful. And it's sometimes so easy to say, but it's so hard to practice.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're like, oh, you have no context, what do you know?
Yeah.
But then also letting them know that they are heard and that they're seen.
Yes, and you talked about mindfulness and practices, right? We did a practice in that course that we did of just active listening, and it was so powerful. It was just like 3 or 4 minutes. One person would so it was done in pairs. One person would speak about a difficult moment that they had with communicating with someone else continuously for 4 minutes. So I would talk to you about for 4 minutes, and then for the next 3 minutes, you would speak it back to me,
and I would just just tell you what I heard from what you just shared with me.
Yes. No judgment.
Wow.
Nothing about solving your problem. Nothing about just you just speaking it back. And that practice was powerful because it made us realize how often that conversations are not about listening. And it's not about, a lot of people are waiting for their turn to speak.
Exactly, and planning in their head what to react and respond.
Correct. Yeah. Whereas for this one, the practice of just someone else telling you what they heard about what you said, that sense of empathy was very emotional, very powerful.
Oh, I'm going to check that out and read more about that. So, I'm very interested to know, is there an advice or is there a quote that you hold on to dearly in your life?
Two immediately come to mind. The first one is by Confucius, which is wherever you go, go with all your heart. So that's one that I think guided me a lot until now. And then there's the second one that I think has been in play for the last few years quite a lot more, which is that great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Which is something that's
true. It's like compound effect. It's like excellence, right? It's
exactly. It's somewhat like what you brought up just now about excellence. That it's not about this big transformational thing. It's not about this one big thing or one defining moment. It's like all these series of things that come
consistently, even in small bits and small forms.
Which is actually the same as presence, right? You bring your best self in every single interaction, every single moment, and that takes work.
What is one thing that you've learned about yourself that when you look back, it's like, wow, I didn't know I had that, that I was that?
Oh, actually, this is probably not the answer you were expecting, but I just started strength training. So I just started lifting.
So you didn't know you had those muscles that existed?
No, I didn't know that I would be motivated by lifting more than my body weight. It's really odd. I'm like a yoga Pilates person. I used to play basketball.
Yes.
But I don't play team sports anymore.
Yeah.
But I just started lifting, which, I always kind of looked at it and I was like, I don't understand.
I don't
this
get
sport.
it.
I don't really get it.
Yeah.
Like, lift something heavy for 5 times.
Yeah. And the grunt and you throw it back. I mean, I've seen videos of men doing it.
Yeah. So I'm not like
I know.
for that. I'm not there, and I don't think you'll see me like in a lifting competition. But I just started doing that, and I find that unexpected that I actually enjoy doing that, and I'm going back to that.
What do you enjoy though? The challenge in your what is it that you really enjoy from the activity?
Part of it is the challenge. Part of it is knowing like you can lift more and more weights. Part of it is the concentration and focus that is required. It's a really different activation of your body than yoga, Pilates, running, even normal kind of circuit training.
No, it's true, and it's like just also mentally pushing yourself and physically knowing that you can do, and just watch yourself grow in terms of how much more weight you can lift.
Yes, and I'm kind of like experiencing a lot of parallel learnings from lifting and life in a way.
I would think so. Yes, no,
which is odd. Yeah, because it's a mental resilience.
It is a mental resilience. It's like sometimes even for me, like even if I can just hold on to my plank for 10 more seconds, I would think that I can achieve a lot more in life. It's just this mental voice. I mean, all the voices that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
So wow, how long have you been on this strength training journey? In the last few months?
10 weeks maybe.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 10 weeks.
Awesome.
So I was lifting just quite lightly when I was pregnant. Just regular stuff. And then now I just really started getting into it in a more structured way.
And what are some of the benefits that you see from committing to this activity?
I think from a physical point of view, I had a lot of neck issues.
Okay.
So it's what you call tech neck. Where you have neck pain from like phone, laptop, etc.
Yeah.
So I actually used to think that it was a kind of tightness thing when actually it's a strengthening of the surrounding muscles around your neck.
But isn't that Pilates? Or something that you do to...
You can, I'm sure you can address it through Pilates as well, but I'm addressing it through this. So I'm finding that that's helped a lot. But it's also from a I guess, conceptual point of view, it makes me realize when you have pain, it's not always about the area of pain, it's the surrounding area of it.
Yes.
You think about business, it applies to that.
You're right.
It's an ecosystem approach. Your problem area is not always fixed by addressing that problem area. It is the areas around it as well.
That has caused. So by the time it shows up in that pain, it's really
The other benefit, I think, is the mental focus. But to be able to like zero in and be like super focused and collect everything for a very short burst of time, and addressing what kind of power you need in that time, that I feel has enabled me to have a kind of sense of performance in other areas when I need to.
So I see, actually one part of our lives flows into every other part of our lives.
Completely.
Right? Yeah.
And I think I only went into this because I felt like my body needed to go into that. I wanted to challenge myself after giving birth and after the whole pregnancy thing. And I felt like I needed that. So in a way, I realized like, sticking to one thing all the time, that thing about habits, right? It's not necessarily... What different people need different things, and I like the variety that comes into my life. So it's more about sensing what I need,
and also knowing yourself, and not just following just because it works for other people, right? Yeah. What is one thing that you're most excited about in this stage of your life?
Oh wow, I am most excited about change in terms of all aspects. I think I used to be worried about change. I used
worried
to be,
in terms of like fearful? Or
fearful. I think fearful about motherhood, fearful about juggling responsibilities, fearful about problems with the business and the industry changing, problems with competitiveness. So the change that is required to do that, I used to see it as, we have to fix all these problems in order to change, in order to get there. And right now I'm excited about, the different things that we're doing, and I'm seeing the other side of the picture where I'm excited about that change. I'm excited about new people coming in. I'm excited about the new service culture that we're putting forward. Excited about the changing of our digital experience, because it's just have a different lens. I'm starting to see opportunity, and the fear of not being able to execute that is in the background.
Got it.
I used to approach it more from a fear point of view.
No, so it's just actually a change in the way you just look at things, right? And it changes the way everything else flows from it.
I had a vision before of how I wanted things to be, and I had an idea of what it would look like. But I looked at it in a place of, are we ever going to get there?
It's like a half cup full.
Yes. And then now
half
it just
cup
feels
empty.
now it just feels like, okay, I'm excited about all the changes to come, which makes me realize that actually I am able to navigate it a lot better.
It's true. And that's the place that you come from, and that's the place where you lead, and that's the place where you perform and
so I'm excited about changing as a person. I'm excited about really changing. So I realize I'm in a place where I'm comfortable with that.
Wow. And embrace whatever that comes your way, right?
So organizational, family, personal, all of that. Like I'm excited about what that will promise.
That's awesome.
You, I want to hear about you.
Oh,
what
me,
are you excited
again with you already? And
tell me what you're excited about.
What am I excited about? I'm excited about. I think this whole year for me has been, confronting a lot of myself. I mean, I think actually entrepreneurship and running your own business sometimes it's you feel so much pressure, and to a certain extent I get it when people say sometimes it's a lonely journey, and I think also I think along the way so much has happened, the good, the bad, the highs, the lows, the ups and the downs, and I think I've always relied heavily on reflections, like self-reflections, to help me get through these experiences, like really noting down the lessons that I've learned and what I've learned about the situations, myself and teams, or what it takes to build certain teams and businesses in different stages. And I think for me this year, really going back to mindfulness, right? And that's really hit home with me. And that's why I really enjoyed your sharing with me so much, because I mean, for me, it's like, and that's why earlier I shared with you, what happens, what's the reverse of not being mindful in situations, especially when, in a sense, we have so much responsibility on us, and, what happens to us affects the rest of the organization and affects the
people around you.
And for me, it's really going back to that and like realizing through, some of the failures and things that have happened to me this year, it was a result of me not being 100% present and mindful and intentional in those situations. And that was a very hard lesson, and that was tough for me because I keep going back to, shit, what could I have done better? What could I have, it's like so much blaming and so much of what could I have that, and it all just boils down to one thing about just, if only I had been intentional and deliberate and present in that very moment, I wouldn't have allowed this. I would have done it differently. And that's such a huge lesson for me. And that's why today when you spoke to me about mindfulness, it reminds me again of, wow, yes, it is actually something that becomes a part of us, so much a part of us, right? It starts with the way, like little practices or little things that we do that can train our minds and train our emotions and bodies, to also be mindful. So that's what I'm looking forward to being better, to growing, and to becoming a better version of myself also. I
want to say that a lot of it also is being kind to yourself. And accepting and not judging as well. And I think we are our own worst critics all the time. You must have so many people that look up to you and like kind of just think all the time that you're doing everything right. And yet at the same time, we are like, oh, we've done so much wrong as well.
It's true, and I think also for me, it's also learning to celebrate the small wins. Because it's just like a little pat on the back to get you through the next stage of what you need to conquer. And please, can I play a game with you now?
Of course.
It is the this or that game. Well, if you love sports and you're highly competitive, you love games, but this is not nothing big, but it's just a this or that game. So the first thing that comes to your mind, when I give you two options, so it's either like coffee or tea. So we'll start. So, Africa or Asia?
Africa.
Okay, books or e-books?
Books.
Music or podcast?
Music.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs. It's always the first one right now.
I know, that's a trend. Okay, what's worse? Laundry or dishes? Doing laundry or doing dishes?
Quite like both, but
really?
Dishes are better.
Wait, why though? Why are dishes better? I'm interested.
Because laundry has many components, Dishes is just like the washing the dishes. I don't dry them. I just like stack them. Laundry, there's still the ironing part. Like there's several stages, several places.
Okay,
fair. And then you have to sort the laundry. Dishes are all the same most of the time.
Okay,
especially if your hand washing.
Fair enough.
So one supply chain.
Yes, you don't have to think too much, right?
Yes,
about it.
faster.
Not so complicated.
Yeah.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Rice or noodles?
Rice.
I know, I heard you say just now, rice. It's so Asian.
I grew up like my snack is just rice and soy sauce.
Oh
just
my god.
Rice and soy sauce.
Really? Yes. And thank God you didn't like Okay, but anyways, time alone or time with friends?
Oh, time alone. Yeah, right now it's time
question.
alone. Yeah, right now it's time alone.
No, thank you so much, Rachel. I enjoyed our conversation so much.
Thank you.
And I really learned so much from all your lessons and insights and sharing.
Thank you.